Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the Zakat al-Fitr, according to the Hanbali school. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, salatu wa salam ala Rasul al-Kareem, Rabbana taqabbal minna, zidna ilma wa hikma wa huda. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, abduka wa rasuluka nabiyyun ummi, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam taslima. A'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyati a'malina. Allahumma atina nufusina taqwaha wa zakkiha. Anta khayru man zakkaha, anta waliyuha wa mawlaha. Allahumma shukana, amma ba'd. All the praises belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alhamdulillah. Always everything happens by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the things in the past and the future. And may Allah's blessing be upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and peace be upon Prophet Muhammad, the example that we follow. So we'll continue on from Imam al-Sunnah, Ahmad Ibn Hanbal, who continues from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the different rulings. And this is from the Umdah from Ibn Qudama, but he has a summary of the Fiqh al-Hanbaliyah. And the topic today is Zakat al-Fitr, Zakat al-Fitr. And the Zakat, is what that is the charity that a person they spend and they give. And what the person, the Zakat is something that's obligatory in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what it does is when a person they spend it, they purify themselves and they purify their wealth, and that's what it means by zakat. And fitr refers to when a person they stop fasting. When you have the iftar, it's like comes the same root word, and fitr means that the Ramadan, when the Ramadan ends, then you stop fasting, and then you have the fitr. And what happens is there's a zakat that's due on that. That's different than the regular zakat, where a person they pay on their wealth that they saved for a year. They have that, but this zakat al-fitr is in addition to that, the person that's owed. That's a zakat al-fitr, so that's what that's referred to. That's the section over here. Okay, would you like to read the first one, Sheikh Omar?
وهي واجبة على كل مسلم.
Yes, so the zakat al-fitr is obligatory on every Muslim, and what that means is every person that is a Muslim, they have to pay the zakat al-fitr. Everyone that's a Muslim. So for example, in a family, if a person, they have 10 people, then the zakat al-fitr is obligatory on all 10 of them. That's what it means, all the Muslims that are there. But if somebody in the household is not a Muslim, then the zakat al-fitr is not obligatory on them. Like for example, let's say a person, he married a Christian wife, then he doesn't pay the zakat al-fitr on the Christian wife. But if the person, they have children that are Muslim, then the zakat al-fitr is on each child that's as an example in the household. So everybody that's a Muslim, that's who the zakat al-fitr is obligatory upon on the individual. And it's the same amount on, I know he talks about this later on how much it is. It's not like the regular zakat, which people that have a lot more wealth, they pay more. And people that have less, they pay less. But the zakat al-fitr is the same on every individual, regardless of how much wealth that they have. Everybody that's a Muslim, that's there for the most part. So that's what that's the first condition, first requirement, that the person may be Muslim. Then the zakat al-fitr is obligatory on them. Okay, to read number 2.
Number 2, if he has authority over enough sustenance for him and his family, the night and the day of Eid.
Yes. So what happens is you see on the zakat al-mal, on the regular zakat, on the wealth, a person, they have to have more than the nisab, more than the threshold point. And the threshold point, you see, is like 20 dinars or 200 dirham. And today's day and age, it comes out to be about $10,000. And with a dirham, it's like $1,000. So that's a little bit where a person, they have to pay, where the zakat becomes obligatory on the person to pay. But in the zakat al-fitr, it's much less than that. If a person, they have enough food, for themselves, then they have to pay the zakat al-fitr on it. And then they have to pay also the zakat al-fitr on each person in the family. It doesn't have to be, the amount is much less. So usually the zakat al-fitr is on most everybody, unless the person is really, really poor, doesn't even have enough to eat. Then the zakat al-fitr is not on that person. So on that night, if a person, they have enough to eat, that night, enough food for himself, then he has to pay the Zakat al-Fitr. And the Sheikh, he also said for his family also. It doesn't it means enough food means for the whole family. Let's say a person, they have like 10 kids, right? And he says, okay, I have enough food for me, but I don't have enough for my kids. Then the Zakat al-Fitr won't be obligatory on him. So it means both him and the family, if there's enough food for them, then they have to pay the Zakat al-Fitr. And sometimes people, they have enough food, sometimes they don't have enough food. So he's talking about, if that's the case, on the night of Eid. That means the night before the Eid al-Fitr, when the Ramadan ends, if he has enough food, sustenance, then they got to pay Zakat al-Fitr on it. If he doesn't have enough, then he doesn't pay the Zakat al-Fitr. And it also applies if the person might have been poor sometime in the past, a few days earlier, but then at that point he has enough food, then the Zakat al-Fitr is on him. So that's what he mentioned, the night of the Eid. If there's enough provision for him and his family, then the Zakat al-Fitr is due. Is that clear? Explain that? Okay, inshallah. So let's go to number 3.
Number 3. وقدر فطرته
Yes.
صاع.
Yes. So the amount that a person they have to give in the Zakat al-Fitr is 1 sa'. And 1 sa' in the time of Rasulullah, what it is when you put your 2 hands together and fill it up with the food, they call that 1 mud. And 4 of those is 1 sa'. 4 of those that you fill your hands up together with the food. That's the term, that's the measurement that they had in the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nowadays, the ulama, they say a sa' is 1 kilo and this 1.5 kilograms. They estimate it to be that much. So that's how much the person they have to give in the Zakat al-Fitr for each Muslim person. It's not just one on the whole family. Let's say the father is the only one that has money and everybody else, he supports them. So the Zakat, regular Zakat, just be on the father. It wouldn't be on the whole family. But the Zakat al-Fitr, it's on every Muslim that's there. And the father has to pay for it. This is coming up later on, so we'll talk about that. So it's on for every individual that's a Muslim, the Zakat al-Fitr is on them. And the amount is 1 sa' for each person. So if a person and their family, if they have 5 people, then they have to give 5 sa' in the food for the Zakat al-Fitr. Is that clear on the amount? Okay, inshallah. Let's go to number 4.
From wheat, barley,
Yes.
or their flour or their grow.
Gold, yes, okay. So the Zakat al-Fitr, what people they have wheat. Wheat is what they make flour from and dough from, and it's the original thing. And also barley, wheat they say in Arabic, bur. Barley they say sha'ir, and barley is similar to wheat that they have also that people they use to bake things and things like that. And he said their flour. What happens is when you go to the store and you have flour, what happened? It was originally wheat, and they pounded it and they made it into particles, and they came out white as flour. So that's what they have. The other process that they made it. So then it refers to flour. And you mentioned Sawayqahuma, their gruel means that like their derived substance that you have from them. So that's what you have to give in the Zakat al-Fitr. If you have the wheat or the barley, you give 1 sa' for each person. But a lot of times you just have the flour, and it's in the form of a flour. Then the same thing, you give 1 sa' of the flour, and it goes for the wheat and the barley. That's the main thing that people they give the Zakat al-Fitr, the wheat and the flour. Page read number 5.
أو من التمر.
Tamar.
أو من التمر. أو الزبيب.
Yes. So the Sheikh, he said the next thing after the flour and the wheat and the barley, you can give tamar. Tamar means the dates. It basically means the dry dates that you have, the ones that most people are familiar with. Or the zabib is the raisins, which are the dates when they come out first. They're actually, they call it rutba, or bala is the word term that they use for it, and it's like an apple. It's like sort of like an apple, tiny apple. And then when it becomes dry, they call it tamar. and it's like the raisin. Raisin is a grape originally, and the grape has all the fruit and things like that on it, and the raisin is like a dried up form, crumpled form. So he said that those things from the dates and the raisins, the person they can give the zakat al-fitr on those things as well. The one sa for each person, no? One sa of dates, or one sa of raisins as well. Okay, so let's read number 6.
If you can find them, if you can find them, then from any sustenance, that is a sa'a.
Yes. So that's what the Sheikh said. First, you have to give it in wheat and barley, and then after that, you give it in raisins and dates. Then, if you can't find those things to give in the zakat al-fitr, then you can give other things that have that measurement with the sa. Like a person, they can give rice, for example. Rice is, if they can't find those previous things mentioned, they can give the rice as the zakat al-fitr, or the other food they can give the zakat al-fitr. They're the things that you can measure in the sa, the 4 handfuls. The other types of foods, other types of foods that you have that's allowed to give the zakat al-fitr. Okay, that's number 6. All right, so we go to number 7.
Number 7 says, whoever is responsible to pay fitr is also responsible to pay on behalf of those who he is responsible for on the night of Eid, if he has the capability to pay it.
Yes. So what happens is the person, usually in a family, you have the father, he pays for all the food and everything like that. So he pays the zakat al-fitr on himself. But then you have other family members. You have his wife, you have his children, and so he pays for them. He's responsible for them. So he should pay the zakat al-fitr for those people as well. Because usually those other people, they don't have the money. A 2-year-old baby is not going to have any money, right? So then the one that's responsible to support him, then he should pay on behalf of the 2-year-old baby and the other people in the family as well. He pays for himself and the people that he's responsible to take care of. He has to pay on their behalf as well. That is, if he has enough on the night of the Eid. If there's enough provision, enough food for him, and for all those people in his family on the night of Eid, then he has to pay the zakat al-fitr. But if there's not enough food for them, then he doesn't have to pay the zakat al-fitr on their behalf or on his behalf. Okay, is that clear, Hamad? The person that supports his whole family, he has to pay the zakat al-fitr on his whole family. That's the point that the Sheikh is making. Okay, like for yourself, Sheikh Omar, right? You have your wife and you have your kids over there. So normally you support them, you provide them with the regular food and things like that. Then when the zakat al-fitr comes, you got to pay for yourself. But then for your wife and kids, you got to pay for them also. That's what because you support them normally, so you do that. And the reason the Sheikh used the word support was back in his day and age, in the time of Ibn Qudama, they used to have slaves too. So people that used to have slaves, and they would support their slaves as well. So they got to pay on behalf of their slaves as well. That's why he mentioned that the people that you have to support. They got the person that's responsible for them, he's responsible for their zakat al-fitr as well. If he's capable of paying it on the night of the Eid. All right, inshallah. Let's go to number 8. Number 8 is a little bit tricky to explain that.
If there is a group responsible, like a group sharing a slave, or one that is in difficult, that is close to a group, then the fitr is on them in proportion to their responsibility.
Okay, so the Sheikh is saying, like, let's say there's a slave, and he has 5 different owners. They each own like 1/5 of him. Okay, so what happens is on that slave, there's a zakat al-fitr, and who has to pay it? All those 5 owners have to pay their proportion. So each one of them have to pay 1/5 of the sa to cover for the slave, because he has several people that support him. Okay, so they pay in proportion on how they support the slave. They pay that in their proportion. And likewise, somebody that's close, let's say that the person, they have a sister, for example, right? A sister, and she's not married, and she doesn't have anybody to take care of her except for her brothers. And so she has 4 brothers that provide for her, that support for her. So somebody's got to pay the zakat al-fitr for her. So who does that? The 4, they share in it, because the 4 of them, they support the sister. So 4 of them, they have to split in on the zakat al-fitr in proportion to the support for her. So that's what this is saying. If there's many people, a group of people that's responsible for a particular individual, then that group is responsible for that zakat al-fitr in proportion to the normal responsibility that they have on that person that they're responsible for. Okay, is that clear on that point? Okay, so let's go to number 9. Do you read number 9, Sheikh Umar?
Number 9. If there is a partially free slave, then the fitr is on him and his master.
Yes. Okay, what you have is you have a term for a slave that is paying off his freedom. They call that maktuba. Maktuba literally means a written slave. And what he does is the slave, he tries to collect money, the zakat, the sadaqah and other things to pay off his freedom. Then he pays it off little by little. So what happens is if there is a slave that's like that, so he's not completely enslaved. He has part of his freedom. So let's say he paid off half of his freedom. So what happens is he's half free. Half slave and half free, because he paid off half of the amount. He still owes half of the amount. So then what happens is, who pays the zakat al-fitr on him? So they both pay the zakat al-fitr. The slave pays half of it, and the master pays half of it. Because the master owns half of the slave, so he's going to pay that proportion, the half amount of the zakat al-fitr for the slave. And the slave himself, he's free for a half, so he pays half of it. Is that clear on that? Let's say that there's a maktuba slave, a written slave, and he paid off 10% of his freedom. So then what happens is the slave has to pay, because 10% free, so he has to pay 10% of the zakat al-fitr for him, and the other 90% on who owns him. So that's how it goes. That's the point that the Sheikh is making there. If a slave is partially free, then he pays for the proportion that he's free, and the master pays the rest in the zakat al-fitr. Is that clear on that point? Okay, sure. Let's go to number 10.
Number 10 says, it is virtuous to take out the fitr on the day of Eid before the salat prayer.
Yes. So when you pay the zakat al-fitr, the best time is on the day of Eid before the salat al-Eid. And the reason for that, the wisdom behind it, is the zakat al-fitr, you want to give it to all the Muslims so they all have plenty to eat and they're not starving, at least on the day of Eid. So that's the wisdom behind it. So that's the best time to give the zakat al-fitr is on the morning of the Eid, before the Eid salat. You give it to the poor and the needy and the other people during that time. That's an appropriate time to give the zakat al-fitr. The virtuous to take it out during that time. The morning of the Eid, Eid al-Fitr, you give the zakat al-fitr out with food and things like that out to the poor and the needy, the rest. Okay, is that clear, Hanbali? Number 10? Okay, so read number 11. Yes.
It is not allowed to delay it on the day of Eid.
Yes. So personally, they have to make sure they give it before the Salat al-Eid, and it's not allowed to delay it until after the Eid Salat. You got to make sure that he gives it before the Eid Salat. That's what he said. And even some narrations from Rasulullah says that if they don't give it before the Eid Salat, then they give it afterwards, but it doesn't count as the fitr. It counts as just a regular sadaqah. They do that afterwards. So they got to make sure that they give it before the Eid Salat, and not delay it so that it becomes too late and it doesn't count as a zakat al-fitr, it counts as regular zakat. Or doesn't count as the zakat al-fitr counts as regular sadaqah in that case. Is that clear, Sandra? That point? Okay, sure. Let's read number 11.
Number 11, it is allowed to give to a single individual what would be given to a group.
Okay, I think you skipped number 12 there.
Okay.
Read that there.
It is allowed to give it before a day or two.
Yes, so a person, they can give out the zakat al-fitr 1 day before the Eid or 2 days before the Eid also, but not before that. Not like 3 days or a week before or a month before. Just 1 or 2 days before Eid is allowed to do that. Before the Eid Salat, and 1 day or 2 days before, that's what the Shaykh said is allowed to give it then. All right, you read the next one. You were reading that before. It is allowed to give it to a single.
It is allowed to give to a single individual what would be given to a group.
Okay, so let's say a person, they have 5 people in their family, so they have to pay 5 zakat al-fitrs. So then they collect all the food together, the 5 sa. So all of the 5 sa, you don't have to necessarily give to 5 different people. You can give it all to just one person. That's the point that's there. So the zakat al-fitr, it doesn't mean each person gives it to one person. You can gather it all together and give it all to one person. It's allowed to do that if you want. So, okay, to read the last point, number 13.
Number 13. And a group, what is given to one individual.
Yes. So let's say a person, they have zakat al-fitr, only one person has a zakat al-fitr, 1 sa. So you can give that to 5 different people if you want. 1/5 of a sa, 1/5 of a one. It's not much, but you can do that also. That's the point over there. It doesn't have to be just one person. It could be many people, and even they might get less than a sa each. So that's the final point. All right, inshallah. Okay, so this is a zakat al-fitr, and the person. The thing is, these things are obligatory. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it obligatory on the person, and they have to make sure they do the things correctly. The sadaqah is open. Sadaqah, it's open. Person, they can do it any way that they want, and there's a lot of leeway, there's a lot of freedom on things that what person they can do on the sadaqah. But the zakat, the person, they have to do it exactly what's ordained. It's not open for everything. You have to go by the rules that are there. And like over here, it says in the zakat al-fitr, the Shaykh, he mentioned wheat and barley, and the person, they don't have that, the raisins and the dates. Not that, it's something that can be measured in the hand. And in the Hanbali school, it's not allowed to give cash for the zakat al-fitr. You have to give it in food. That's what they say in the Hanbali school. And some of the other schools also, they mentioned that as well. So a person, they go by their Shaykh, by their imam, on the rules and regulations for it. Okay, there's other chapters also on who to give it to and who it's allowed to give it to and who it's not allowed to give it to, and it talks about that in the later on lessons about the zakat. And normally speaking, who is allowed to give the regular zakat, they can give the zakat al-fitr. That's usually the rule for it. Okay, inshallah, so we stop over here. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. If I said anything from the ilm and followed anything from myself, just disregard it. Allah knows best. Did you have any questions or comments, Shaykh Amr?